What's up, YouTube? I got cut off on the last video, so I'm gonna try to redo this. What I wanted to talk about was, treating yourself. Again, but before we get started, if you guys do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment under the video if you agree or you disagree. Anything you do helps me grow the channel. I really appreciate it. Anyway, let's get started. So, um, you've heard it said before, work hard, play hard. And I agree with that sentiment. Um, and I'm a believer of, when you put in that work, you want to reward yourself for some of the accomplishments that you've achieved. You know what I mean? And what I'm not a proponent of is treating yourself for doing what you're supposed to do, if that makes sense, right? And what I mean by that, like a lot of people, if you worked in corporate America or any place, with a lot of people, a lot of coworkers, you notice the behaviors before payday and after payday were completely different. For example, before payday, they're cheaping out on the lunch, they're bringing their lunch, but on payday, they're ordering out, they're living it up, and or in these big places and spending all this money. So they spend all this money on payday, go out to the mall, shop when they get paid, go out that weekend, have a really good time. And, the sentiment is, oh, I worked hard, I worked hard all week, so I'm gonna treat myself. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. And I'm not saying don't treat yourself, even if you are doing that, but you need to be sparingly with that. What I am a proponent of is, like I said, treating yourself when you're working hard and you achieve something great. And also, let's say, just for day to day, let's say you're working hard, you're doing everything right. Every now and then, take some time out for yourself, right? Whether that's a little treat you might want for yourself, or something small to give yourself the reward of maintaining consistency, right? For example, if you work out all the time, I'm not saying, have a cheat day. You could have a cheat snack. You know what I mean? Because some people OD on cheat day, and cheat day turn into cheat weekend, if that makes sense, or cheat vacation. And so it's not about that, right? It's more about making time for yourself, right? And I think all too often, I had someone tell me earlier, adulting is hard. Adulting is hard, right? And the adulting is hard because we as adults sometimes forget to have kid moments, right? What's the point of, 'cause we're adults a lot longer than we're kids if you live a full life, right? So you get to be a kid for 18 years, right? And you now, from 18 to whenever, you're an adult. You have adult responsibilities, you have adult decisions that you make, and the Bible tells us, when I was a child, I acted and behaved as a child, and I became an adult. I put away childish things. So I take it as to mean, you grow up, right? You take on the responsibility that an adult will have, and you don't shirk responsibility to anyone else but yourself, right? I think that's what a child, is always dependent on someone else to take care of them. But that doesn't mean that you just don't have fun anymore, right? That don't mean that you don't have a kid moment and say, today I'm going to do something just for me. And that's for parents, that's for anybody. I think a lot of time parents, have children and everything all becomes about the kid. Or you have some parents that have kids and everything's still about them. And I think you have to find a happy medium before you burn yourself out. You need to have time to yourself. It's important because, like you said, let's say you have kids, right? And like I said, kids are going to be your kids for the rest of their life. They're always going to be your children. But they're only a kid for a portion of your life, right? And, raising children is hard. And if you do nothing but make your life completely about them, I'm not shirking responsibility. I'm not saying, don't worry about kids and do everything for yourself. But you have to have moments from time to time where you have a day to you have time to yourself to do things that's important to you. And you can still be a parent and have something that's just yours, right? And I know kids probably make it impossible in most instances because they want to. They sometimes require your attention, and even when they require your undivided attention, but even when they don't require your undivided attention, they still require your attention, right? But sometimes it's important to steal away. You know what I mean? And you can do that throughout the day. Let's say you're working. Um, Especially your kids in school, you got them to the point where they're in school all day and everything like that. Have that time where you're at lunch where you don't think about anything. You laugh and you have fun for yourself and you look forward to those times. I think all too often, and this is just me, not speaking from experience, but people, speaking from people I talk to, their whole lives is dedicated to the happiness of the children. In regards to not happy with themselves, and I think that's how people get burnt out. You can put your happiness below your children's happiness, but I don't think it's wise to disregard your happiness altogether. I definitely am a believer. Like I said, my children's happiness becomes before mine, but that don't mean I'm just going to be miserable raising children. That's crazy to me. You have to find times to find joy, and you have to find time to, work on yourself. And the same thing, let's say if you don't have children, you just, you're with a partner, you're in a relationship, and now, and I don't believe this, so I don't think you should do this, but you're all your happiness is derived from that other person's happiness. Now, with my wife, I get happiness from her happiness, but my happiness is not derived from her happiness. I'm happy and content with my life outside of her, right? My happiness is not contingent upon how happy she is, right? I don't need her to be happy in order for me to be happy, right? But if she's sad, of course, I'm gonna be sad and try to figure out what's wrong because I want her to be happy. But my happiness is not derived from hers, right? I'm my own person, I'm my own entity, and that's because I make sure that I take time to do what makes me happy. I'm always aware of making sure that she's happy, she's good, she's taken care of, she's content. But I'm also aware of making sure that I'm happy, I'm good, I'm aware, and I'm content. And I think all too often, as parents, and not parents, but as partners, it's either I disregard someone else's happiness, and it's all about me, or it's all about them. And I think either one of those is not the way to go. It's very what's the word we're looking for? Very misleading when it comes to having a long-term relationship. But yeah, so like I said, you definitely want to take time to treat yourself. Whether that may be buying you a little something. I don't think ODing, like some people are like, I treat myself, I go out and buy this super expensive purse. Like my wife, her thing for herself, she likes to get her hair done. That's her treat to herself. For me, I'm into jewelry and stuff like that. I'm into things like that, watches, jewelry, things of that nature. But I also find pleasure in little things. Like I like Legos. It's something that I played with as a kid. I don't OD into it. I'm not spending hundreds of dollars on Legos, but every now and then I might spend $10 to put something together. It's just the little things in life that you find to give you pleasure, and don't steer away from that just because you might have other responsibilities. Because what I found is some people, like, they're in the gym all the time, and they're constantly working and not rewarding themselves, and they get burnt out. Or somebody who's saving, trying to get themselves out of financial bind, and instead of them accounting for some fun, they don't, because they're like, it's also mega important for me to achieve this financial goal. And then what happens is they get burnt out and they end up, destroying all the progress they made because now they're splurging, right? Because they saved up all this money, they've had no fun, they've done nothing, and they just become overwhelmed and they splurge on themselves, and they end up setting themselves back, and then they have to start over, right? So I think you do everything in moderation, reward yourself, take time out for yourself. It's just my opinion. It's what works for me. It helps me not to be burnt out, helps me not to become overwhelmed by the things that I have, and when I go to work, when I leave work, I leave work at work, right? When I come home, my home is home, right? And work is work. I separate the two, and I take time for myself. Like every Saturday, I might go out, and even if I don't buy jewelry, I go look at jewelry. I go look at different things. I enjoy my hobbies, and for you, that might be like, okay, I'm gonna watch my show. I think you do things in moderation. And I mean, I'm not gonna be, if you're watching a show, I wouldn't binge watch your show because there's other things you can be doing to be productive. But you can watch a show, take some time out for yourself where you're just doing your thing. But like I said, what all too happens is, somebody who's been overwhelmed and they have no time for themselves. When they splurge out. Like they haven't had no time for themselves today, so they need all day to recharge their battery. They need all week to recharge their battery, or otherwise they start snapping, they start being aggressive and mean because they haven't recharged their batteries. They haven't taken time for themselves to recharge their batteries. Anyways, my thoughts. Tell me what you think. If you guys are doing me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe button, and comment. Definitely will help me grow the channel. Please let me know if you want to talk about any of these other things, if you've experienced that yourself. Thanks, guys.